And I apologize to Marshall for yesterday when Danny was making I kind of with Marshall. I'm sorry, like he didn't exist. I'm sorry about that, Marshall. But anyway, I do agree with Greg, and I am saying, Nick, the Chargers should be much higher. Here's how much.
What?
Put them on the third tier with Denver, Buffalo, and the Jags. And here's why. I mean, ever heard of Rashawn Slater?
Several
And
times.
I know you heard of Joe Alt. We mocked it on Joe Alt. Joe Alt, the best offensive lineman ever created. But first of all, they got a great head coach. I think we all agree with that, Jim Harbaugh. They've got
Done a bang-up job.
They are bringing back 2 all Pro Bowl level or all pro level tackles that they did not have this year. All right. They are bringing in Mike freaking McDaniel to work with Justin Herbert. Now, I get it. You can roll your eyes if it was he's the head coach, but he's the OC. He is going to have a field day with Justin Herbert and defensively. And look, I've talked up Jesse Minter. He went there. He helped the defense.
And he's gone.
Yeah, but it was some Minter. It was a lot Harbaugh. Because Harbaugh, he's the one that was the head coach when they went from like 24th defensively to first. Harbaugh, 6 seasons as a head coach, including San Francisco, never had a defense that was outside of the top 10 in scoring defense. So defensively, Minter or not, they are going to be legit defensively. And offensively, I mean, they got 2 good running backs, assuming they're healthy, Omari and Hampton, Vidal. Like, I don't know what's not to like. Now, if you want to say playoffs, okay. But regular season, I think they're going to have a strong, they're my pick to win that division.
I cannot believe pretty soon you're going to be talking about how much you like the Cavs and James Harden. I can't believe.
No, this is not about Justin Herbert. This is about the whole
You're really
team.
in on Mike McDaniel now, too.
I
in a good
am.
way.
I like him as an OC. And they're bringing back their tackles.
They,
That's got to help.
It does.
I think that I have a crazy take before you go, KW. I think the Chargers, people aren't going to believe this, are going to be who they've been my entire life.
That's fair taste.
They're gonna win somewhere from 9 to 11 games. They're gonna have some moments where like, oh my God, this might be the year.
The best team in football.
Oh, holy smokes! And then they're gonna finish somewhere around 5th or 6th in their own conference at the end of the day. That's what I think.
We'll see that happening.
Yeah.
You know, there's something almost poetic about how certain things align in life. I love this. I genuinely love this entire situation. Years ago, I made the spontaneous decision to relocate to San Diego, and I ended up spending a significant amount of time between there and Los Angeles. I've talked about this before, right? I was actually living in San Diego when the Chargers made that controversial move when they packed up and left San Diego to become the Los Angeles Chargers. So I feel this deep, almost personal connection to the entire complicated history of that franchise. I lived in Southern California for years, immersed in that culture, and to this day, I still refer to them as the San Diego Los Angeles Chargers out of habit and affection. Little did I know back then that years later, Nick Wright and the Kansas City Chiefs would become this massive national phenomenon, and he would develop this persistent, almost reflexive hatred toward the Chargers. Little did I know that Justin Herbert would emerge as this quarterback who is so clearly elite, so undeniably special, yet somehow constantly doubted and mocked for reasons that continue to baffle me. Little did I know that the sports world at large would consistently demonstrate such a profound lack of ability to engage in actual nuanced, unbiased discussion. Which, by the way, I should probably thank the sports world for, because that failure creates the space for me to share takes and have these conversations. So I'm genuinely grateful for that. I appreciate it. Thank you. The sheer fact that we're looking at a fresh batch of clips right now, and I just finished eating, and I was sitting here questioning whether I could summon the necessary energy to really dive into this, only to realize I already had this queued up and ready to go. I haven't even watched the full clip yet, but I can feel it. I'm already triggered. I'm already feeling that familiar surge of readiness to go off right now. The fact that we as a sports community lack this fundamental nuance, This basic ability to recognize what Justin Herbert has actually been able to accomplish with the Chargers over these years, especially this past season. We don't even need to reach back into history. We can just focus on this year. Is genuinely frustrating. We're talking about an offensive line that was historically bad. We're talking about a situation where he was actively dragging this team into the playoffs against all odds. That is the accomplishment. That is what should be celebrated. Where the disingenuousness comes from, the part that drives me absolutely insane, is that it was so painfully clear that Justin Herbert was doing everything humanly possible to keep that team competitive. He's banged up. The entire team is banged up. There is literally no offensive line to speak of. You could march me out there at certain points, and I genuinely believe I would have been doing a comparable job, and I have no business being on an NFL field. And then after all of that, after he carries this battered team as far as humanly possible, they get beaten, and the narrative becomes this revisionist history where people pretend like this team was rolling, was healthy, was great, and Justin Herbert just simply played badly. He just had a bad game, for no reason, with no context. Did you catch what he said, almost under his breath? He kind of mumbled something about Jim Harbaugh doing a bang-up job these last couple of years. And you know what? He's right. Harbaugh has done exactly that. He completely overhauled the entire culture of that organization. He instilled discipline, changed the mindset, got them into the playoffs. He has reached a point of stability within this franchise that hasn't existed in years. He is actively rebuilding that offensive line, which unfortunately got decimated by injuries at the worst possible times. He's been doing the work. He rebuilt that defense. This stuff takes a minute or two. It takes time to properly construct a roster, and they've had exceptionally unlucky breaks with injuries that obviously had devastating consequences. Think about this logically for a moment. This team won 11 games with arguably the worst offensive line in the entire National Football League. Is it really that much of a stretch? Is it really that difficult to believe that they could win, just one more game? A single additional game with a significantly improved offensive line? Because if your logic suggests that a better offensive line wouldn't translate into more wins, then you're essentially arguing that offensive lines don't matter. You're arguing that the massive financial investments teams make in offensive line personnel are irrelevant. We pay an insane amount of money to quarterbacks, obviously, but we also pay an insane amount of money to the people who protect the quarterback and the people who chase after the opposing quarterback. That's where the vast majority of salary cap resources are allocated. And we're supposed to sit here and pretend that without improved bodies on the offensive line protecting said quarterback, this team is just magically not going to be significantly better. Do we all understand the insanity of that proposition? Do we recognize how that logically cannot make sense? The whole thing is absurd. The entire argument collapses under the slightest scrutiny. Trying to downplay Herbert's accomplishments and the Chargers' potential is not just misguided, it's downright embarrassing. It's genuinely embarrassing to witness. And this is where I always get pushback. This is where people say, oh, you bring up Patrick Mahomes too much. I bring up Mahomes because he's the most beloved quarterback in the league, the gold standard, the guy who has reached the Super Bowl multiple times. I could use Joe Burrow as an example, but people don't care about him with the same intensity. So I use Mahomes because he's the perfect illustration. He got to the Super Bowl. He lost 2 Super Bowls. And in both of those losses, what was the narrative? They blamed his offensive line. They blamed his offensive line repeatedly. They said, well, he got to the Super Bowl, and that's good enough. That's a huge accomplishment. Justin Herbert just got to the playoffs with a far worse situation, and the response is crickets or criticism. Because Justin Herbert not only had a terrible offensive line, but his overall roster was also significantly worse than those Mahomes-led teams that made Super Bowl runs. So yes, if he maybe had a better roster and a functional offensive line, then sure, maybe he could have advanced farther in the playoffs. But it's not just this one singular thing. It's the cumulative effect of multiple deficiencies that people keep failing to recognize and failing to understand. He was beat up so badly that he needed to undergo surgery in the middle of the season. Let me speak from personal experience as someone who has gone through multiple surgeries. I don't care what the surgery is, no matter how big, no matter how minor it's classified as, going under anesthesia, having a surgical procedure, and then literally playing a football game a week later is insane. It is absolutely insane, and we as fans and media just take it for granted. We act like it's nothing. We act like it's just, oh, it was just on his thumb. Or It was just on his wrist, his non-throwing hand. That's an insane statement when you actually think about it. Just going under anesthesia alone is a whole ordeal. The entire process of getting surgery is a significant event in anyone's life. Even for these world-class athletes who have access to the best medical care, they still have to go to the same surgical centers, the same operating rooms as everyone else. It's still a whole thing they have to go through. There's a recovery process. Your stomach hurts from the anesthesia. Your body is recovering from the trauma of surgery. All of this is happening. And then for you to go out and play a football game against grown men who are all getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to aggressively pursue you and hit you, it's genuinely insane. It's absolutely remarkable. And yet we want to use that as just another data point to criticize him. We use him as a pin cushion. Look at Aaron Rodgers, who I don't think had surgery, but he broke his hand or wrist or whatever it was and played with a cast. The guy is in his 40s. That's remarkable. That's incredible. And so to keep trying to downplay these things, to ignore these mitigating circumstances, is just embarrassing to me. You cannot have it both ways. You simply cannot. You can't say, oh, well, what do you want Mahomes to do? He needs a better offensive line. Nick himself said this during the season when he felt the offensive line was improving and when he thought the receivers were getting better. He said, well, of course, as long as Mahomes has a good offensive line and receivers he trusts, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. That's a direct quote, essentially. Well, we haven't seen Justin Herbert once throughout his entire career where he's had an offensive line he can trust and receivers he can trust simultaneously. Not once. So it's shocking, absolutely shocking, that we haven't been able to consistently see the best version of Justin Herbert. And yet, despite all of that, he still produces. He still performs at an elite level. But the narrative keeps pretending like he's unbelievable during the regular season, and then he just inexplicably crashes and burns in the playoffs with no other mitigating circumstances to consider. It's just dumb. It's absurd. It's insane. It's disingenuous. And most importantly, it's incorrect. So I do think the Chargers are going to be great. I do think the Chargers are going to be special. And it's so funny listening to the criticism because the argument is essentially, I think the Chargers are going to do the exact same thing they've done my entire life. And yet, for essentially over half of his life, the Philadelphia Eagles have been one of the winningest teams in the NFL. That's just a straight-up fact, indisputable. But somehow, he doesn't think they're going to be that good. The Dallas Cowboys haven't even reached an NFC championship game in the last 30 years, but he consistently has them at the top of his rankings. Baker Mayfield has never consistently been a great quarterback over an extended period, but he had him as an MVP candidate and going to the Super Bowl. I'm struggling here. I'm genuinely struggling to understand the logic. I mean, at least he's got the Broncos up there. You know? Credit where credit is due for that. But what is his extra beef with the Chargers? Someone needs to help me out here. Obviously, I understand the division rivalry with the Chiefs and all of that context. But what's the extra edge? What's the additional animosity? I don't get it. So please, Chargers fans or anyone who has insight, help me understand. What's his extra oomph when it comes to the Chargers? Because it clearly exists with the Chargers. It exists with the Broncos to some degree. It used to exist with the Raiders. And I have my own theory about that. I think with all the time he spends in Vegas, with the poker and the lifestyle out there, I think he prefers to maintain a more friendly relationship with the Raiders and that Las Vegas fan base. Which, hey, makes sense. Can't blame you for that. But there's extra oomph toward the Broncos, and definitely extra toward the Chargers. It's more intense than even the Broncos situation, and it's combined with this refusal to give any benefit of the doubt. It's easier to dunk on a young quarterback who hasn't shown much, but Justin Herbert has shown tremendous resiliency and greatness over a longer period of time than someone like Bo Nix. Obviously. And yet there's an unwillingness to extend any sense of benefit of the doubt for any shortcomings, any issues throughout the course of the season. I can't wrap my head around it. He does the same thing with the Eagles, which is why I pointed them out. But at least with the Eagles, it makes sense to me on some level. The Eagles beat his Chiefs in the Super Bowl, right? They humiliated them. They led Patrick Mahomes to have arguably the worst game of his career on the biggest stage of his life and ruined the three-peat attempt. So I can understand him having deep-seated hatred for the Eagles again and again and again. That makes logical sense. That tracks. But the Chargers? I don't know. And now Wild gets involved. making fun of the offensive line and Justin Herbert and throwing out James Harden comparisons and whatnot. I don't know, man. I genuinely don't know. But it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect that this dislike and doubt is so prominent, so deep, so vast, and it's directed at a team in an area where I lived, a region I feel connected to. It's like this perfect alignment. And it's attached to a fan base and a team, the Chiefs, that people also wrongfully assume I hate or that I'm biased against. It's just so perfect. It adds a personal connection to this entire discourse that I really appreciate. I genuinely appreciate how all of these elements have come together. But those are just my thoughts on the matter, and I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Los Angeles Chargers being ranked so low? Greg saying they should be in that third tier, which essentially means a top team in the NFL, but not at the very summit. Where do you stand on this? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment that comes through, whether you find yourself in agreement with my perspective or you think I'm completely off base. Either way, let's use this space to generate some real discussions. Let's get into some spirited debates, some friendly fights over football opinions. But ultimately, let's remember to just have some fun with it. This is entertainment after all. And please, if you're enjoying the content and the community we're building here, do consider subscribing to the channel. We're building something amazing, and I would absolutely love to see you be a part of it. My goal is to create something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something we're all excited to be a part of and contribute to. I think we're well on our way to accomplishing that vision. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It genuinely helps with visibility and navigating the unpredictable nature of the algorithm. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll see you in the next one.